such a wonderful crowd here tonight. I'm Michelle Barber of the League of Women Voters of Maplewood South Orange, and as a public service, we're presenting this forum to educate you, residents of South Orange, about candidates for village president as well as for trustees in the upcoming election. Now, I have to tell you that if you did not yet register to vote, you're out of luck. However, if you want a vote by mail application, it's not too late. They're on the table right where you entered. They look like that, and the deadline is a week before the May 14th election. I'd like to introduce Dawn Clark, a member of the League of Women Voters, Vice President of the League of Women Voters of New Jersey, and a member of the Union County League. She will be our moderator for this evening, and we'll give you the rules.
Good evening. I'm very glad to be here, and it is a nice crowd. I'm glad that you have, it's going to be a big, full evening, and it's going to be hard to try to hear from everyone, but I think it's a tribute to you in South Orange that you have so many people willing and able and wanting to run for public office to serve the community. So, and that you're interested in hearing both all sides of it. So, it's good to see you here. I'm glad. It's nice to be here. We have a two-part format this evening. First, we're going to have time to hear from the candidates for your village president. And we have two candidates for the one opening of village president. And the format for them is that I'm going to introduce them to you, and then we're going to have a question period for them. The league has already sent to them two, or actually three pithy questions that they had to research, and we're going to alternate the questioning on that. I'm going to first ask one, then the other, and then keep going back and forth. I may lose track after a while, but we'll do our best. So they're going to answer the questions that have been prepared, and for the first question they're going to have 2 minutes, and then for the second and third question they'll each have 1.5 minutes. We're going to ask for some questions from the floor from you. I'm sorry that we have such a full agenda that we won't be able to ask all of your questions, but we're going to do the best we can, so that we're going to try to get in 3 or 4 questions. You can hand in the question on the cards, please. Please note, though, that I am not as young as I used to be, and my glasses are very good, but for some reason I have to write very legibly and large, so that I can really read the questions, and I appreciate that. They will be briefly screened because we don't want to have redundant questions. We want to ask just new questions each time. So I have a screener back here. He's working hard. He's trying to sort your questions that you presented already. Now, the candidates have right in front of them, we have timekeepers. And when there's 30 seconds to go, the timekeeper will hold up that nice little yellow card, and they will know that then they will hold up the stop card when their 2 minutes or their 1.5 minutes are up. I'll let them answer their, finish their sentence, but I was trained by a good English teacher, and they won't be allowed to have a lot of run-on sentences and semicolons, so they will have to stop. And I'll ask them to stop. It is league policy that we always address issues in debates, not personalities. So I will not allow any kind of attacks on one another, or anything that sounds like name-calling and that kind of thing. It seems to be in vogue nowadays, but it is not civil. We will not allow it. So we will stick to our issues. The other thing is, though, that now, that's the last time I do that, okay? Till the end, because what I'm really going to ask is, we need your cooperation also, because you're in such a tight time frame. I'm going to ask you to hold your applause till the end. There will be no, after they answer questions, there will be nothing from you, from the audience, so please refrain from any kind of applause or any acknowledgement, either negative or positive, okay? But you're going to have to pay very strict attention, and I'm going to ask you to really listen very, very carefully, because you got to get it all in a short period of time. All right, without further ado then, we're going to move on, and we're going to ask our first question, and I'm going to ask Ms. Collum to be the first candidate to respond, but I think I should introduce them. I think you probably know them better than I do. But on my immediate left is Sheena Collum, and then to her left is Deborah Davis Ford. And these are your two candidates for the one position of village president. All right, we're going to start with you, Ms. Collum, and I'm going to ask the first question. And for this question, timekeepers, this is a 2-minute question. So, why are you the better candidate for the office of village president?
Thank you very much to the League of Women Voters for hosting this. I'm Sheena Collum. I'm the sitting village president. I would first like to point out that I started my political career as being a 4th grade hall monitor. So public service is something that I've really enjoyed all throughout the years. I went to Seton Hall University. My education is a bachelor's degree in political science with my master's in public administration with a concentration in public policy. Right now I work for the American Planning Association, which means that my professional background is in economic development, housing, transportation, the environment, all issues that make good cities, or in this case, good villages work, especially with a concentration in equity and planning, which I know this community really appreciates. I think I'm a better village president candidate because I have accomplished everything that I set out to do 4 years ago, so much that my running mate at the time has basically supported all the initiatives that I committed to you. To focus on a few of those, it was taxes. I kept all of our taxes below 2% increases, at the same time addressing long-deferred critical capital projects, such as the library that we're in today, and we're working with the Public Library Board. Our police headquarters is underway. We have a new water utility. We no longer have contaminated water. The tennis court is done. The skate house is done. Our Baird Community Center is a $10 million investment that is going to feature a teen center. We have new tennis courts over there as well. So I was able to focus primarily on keeping and minimizing those tax increases, at the same time addressing something that's so important to me, such as infrastructure. On economic development, welcome to $150 million worth of new ratables that are coming to our town. Village Hall right now is currently underway and will be a restaurant and beer garden. On crime, we are lower than we have ever been before with efficiencies in the department. And lastly, with communications and community engagement, I feel that I've been very responsive to the community over the past 4 years.
Thank you. Ms. Davis Ford, why are you the better candidate for office of village president?
I'm the better candidate for office of village president. My husband and I chose this community 25 years ago, and I've been a part of the service and giving back to the community and all the things that are good and that have happened in the last 12 years. When I first got on the board, we were in the middle of a recession and nobody knew who was coming. In collaboration with the other members of the board, we were one of the few towns that were able to not reduce our fire or our police and maintain the quality of life and safety. I also bring something to the table that my opponent doesn't bring, and that is a successful experience in the corporate world that I can leverage here, stepping up into the leadership role. Besides vice president and executive of many corporations, I also was a partner in a startup firm with initially $50,000 that we grew into a multi-million-dollar entity. 10 years ago, I was tapped to manage one of the largest legislative offices in the county level, and so I have experience to day-to-day governance. South Orange, all of these things that were accomplished were collaboratively. There's no I in my service to South Orange, that we serve the village. All of those things that have happened with my vote, working with others. You will always hear from me that I worked together and supported those initiatives. When those initiatives were put forth, they were put forth as a team. So the things that I love about South Orange, I embrace and I recognize. But there are a lot of other concerning issues that I believe that I'm the right person to step forward in a leadership role and move our beloved village of South Orange forward.
Thank you. I'm going to ask you to hold on to that microphone, and Ms. Davis Ford, and you're going to start with the next question. The next question is, there is a trend toward redevelopment in the village. Is there an optimum amount of redevelopment that should be approved?
Yes, our challenge here in the village of South Orange is where do we do the development? Responsible development is important because there's an opportunity to increase rateables. If you increase rateables, there's an opportunity to reduce the burden of tax responsibility increase on the property owners. That's very straightforward. Where we have just 3 areas, as you're well aware, where that type of responsible development can happen. It's South Orange Avenue, Valley, and Irvington Avenue. So the challenge is, when we make these types of decisions, we have to ensure that our community, our residents, are involved in the process and see that is something that will fit into our beautiful downtown. Secondly, we have to be concerned about the infrastructure. When we build those developments, we have to be sure that water and sewer can also support these new developments. We have to be concerned about traffic patterns, what impact that will have on the traffic in our community. We also have to be concerned about parking. How do we address parking? One of the drivers for developers to push for density is the cost of parking that is required when they develop. And perhaps one of the things we need to look at is to where we put parking downtown so that will allow for developers to have the type of projects that are more in conforming to the environment that they're being built.
Thank you. Now I'm going to... Magic woman. Now, does that still work? Okay. Ms. Collins, I need to repeat the question for the audience.
Sure,
okay.
absolutely.
For the audience, there is a trend toward redevelopment in the village. Is there an optimum amount of redevelopment that should be approved?
Yes, absolutely. When I was elected to the Board of Trustees, one of the things that I focused on was our commitment to affordable housing. This is not only state obligated, but it's a moral responsibility for us. Under our new numbers, we need to be able to hit roughly about 100 units by 2025, which means with our 20% ordinance that I introduced, which means 1 out of every 5 new units that gets developed will be for affordable and moderate income housing. That means that by 2025, we will build roughly about 500 or so mixed-use developments. Now, with my professional background, what I can say that I've brought to the board professionally is a focus on good community form and fabric and design. So development, not just for development's sake, but we look at setbacks. We do look at traffic patterns. We look at the financial pro formas of what's really in the best interest of taxpayers. There has not been a single long-term tax abatement of 30 years while I've been on the board. Only financial pro formas and developments that work in the best interest of taxpayers. Trustee Davis Ford had referenced parking, which is so critical, but as we think about parking, we have to look at walkability and mobility. Do we want to be a structured parking garage, or do we want to enhance our commercial corridors so people feel a lot more safe in how they walk? The future is not automobiles, it's walkable urbanism. And lastly, we also focus on residential site improvement standards to ensure that every aspect of all pro formas and development projects are done in the right way for our community.
Okay, thank you. Hold on to the mic, because you're going to start, Ms. Collum, with the third question. Shared services are seen as a way of curtailing municipal costs. What shared services would you work to achieve, and with which authorities? What shared services or other forms of collaboration would you not pursue?
So,
All in 1.5 minutes, by the way.
and you can tell this format doesn't lend itself to somebody like me. So in 1 minute, I will say that as village president, everything is always on the table. I come from, in my experience, that I want to see more collaborations, shared services, consolidations. Right now in New Jersey, we are #1 in the country in property taxes. The average assessed home in South Orange is $580,000, and you all and myself spend $17,500 in property taxes. So when I say everything is on the table, I truly mean everything. We already share a school district with our sister town of Maplewood, which is 57% of our budget. I worked on tax collection. I worked on writing the grant to bring SOMA for 2 towns for all ages to our senior citizens, which has now brought in over $250,000. I have supported every measure that builds better efficiencies for our community without a focus on political ego or the things that normally stop shared services from happening. What I like to do is bring in an independent assessment of departments to see where efficiencies can be built, if shared services work, if consolidations work, and see what the outcome will be. I truly believe, and get ready for the controversial statement, the future of South Orange and Maplewood is fully consolidated. I think that we are the lowest hanging fruit in the state, already sharing a school district. So as we knock off each and every other department, I think it brings us closer together and more efficient for our taxpayers.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Davis Ford, can you discuss shared services?
Yes, I think it's a no-brainer that we have to look for shared services and consolidation where it makes sense. But not all shared services are equal. Let me give you a few examples. We had shared services with our grass cutting, and that was poorly done, so we brought that back. We have other shared services that work well with Maplewood, and that's our recreation shared services because it benefits both communities and the cost is mitigated by that shared service. We have, where I would look at shared services, I would look at opportunities to do more of a regional shared service in regards to the fire and the merger and those opportunities where we have the opportunity to have governance over that shared service and protect the public safety of our community. The other area of shared services that I would look to do, and I think it could be a little creative, is one of our biggest challenge are our roads, our infrastructure. They're in bad shape, but this is a challenge and a problem that exists in most communities. So I would look to maybe partner with several of our municipalities that we border and share and see if we can consolidate the purchase of repairing our roads so that we can get a lower price point and do more of our infrastructure in our community.
All right, thank you. And now I'm going to move right along, and we're going to start with you, Ms. Davis Ford, and the first question. And somebody was being very pithy. It's not complete sentences, but South Orange Train Bridge needs repair. Many potholes in our roads. County Road 2. Do you have an answer to this in 1 minute?
I feel your pain. I hit a couple of those potholes. We have to find a way, again, I think collaboratively working with other municipalities so that we can go to a contractor to get a better price so we can do more roads. Our capital budget for roads in South Orange is $1 million. $1 million is not a lot. So what we find is that the worst roads get done. The other opportunity is to sit down and work with the county to see if we can get an additional expansion of our county roads. Our county roads are like highways. South Orange Avenue, Scotland Road, Valley, Irvington Avenue, and see how we, in partnership, can also be able to leverage and get a return on our 60% of the taxes that we send to the county.
All right, Ms. Collins.
Could you please read
Yeah,
the
yeah, I
question
should.
again?
I surely can. South Orange Train Bridge needs repair. Many potholes in our roads. County Road 2. I think we're worried about some of that road infrastructure.
So my short answer is it comes down to what your capital priorities are. As the village president, I mapped out a long-term strategy. Right now, we do put about $1 million away for roads, but if you think about it, and I had to just pull it up, each time that we raise one tax percentage point, it's roughly $283,000. We just got a grant from the New Jersey Department of Transportation for Grove Road, right next to Grove Park. That's $300,000. So it's a balancing act between our roads and the other critical infrastructure, such as the facility that we're in today. I do believe that my long-term plan, coupled with the redevelopment shared service agreements, will have a net impact of close to zero for taxpayers. So again, I reinforce that it is about prioritization, but I'm also disappointed in the county. The county raised their tax levy 5% on homeowners in South Orange and respectively 10% on open space. They are responsible for the 3 roads that Trustee Davis Ford had elaborated on earlier. And I think we need to put pressure on the Essex County Board of Chosen Freeholders to invest that money back into South Orange.
Thank you. Now, for 1 minute, Ms. Collins, what is your position on affordable housing for South Orange?
So for the longest time, South Orange participated in what I would consider racial segregation in their zoning practices. What they used was regional contribution agreements to pay poor communities to fulfill their moral obligation of building lower income and moderate income households. With my background and passion for affordable housing, I rewrote this entire document. No longer are we going to say that affordable housing is being built on top of Orange Lawn Tennis Club and deceive the state. My plan focuses on redevelopment, inclusionary ordinances that will get us to what we need by 2025, which is what I said, 100 units. To put that into perspective, for the past 30 years since Mount Laurel took effect and required a fair share of obligations, South Orange has built less than 25 units. So it was 30 years of 25 units, or Sheena for the next few years until 2025 with 100 more. I am fully committed, and I believe I'm the best candidate to advance this agenda for South Orange.
Ms. Davis Ford, what is your position on affordable housing?
A lot of our residents struggle to stay here, and so affordable housing is imperative. And that decision to make sure that we meet those COA targets of 100 units was a collaborative effort and a collaborative decision with Sheena Collins, but also with the Board of Trustees. These decisions are made collaboratively. But one of the areas I want to look at is what is affordable, meaning what would HUD give you to live in a unit. We unfortunately are in the zip code of Newark. So what's affordable in Newark is definitely not affordable in South Orange. So maybe for a 2-bedroom apartment, what you would mostly may get maybe $1,200, maybe in Newark, but in South Orange that wouldn't cut it. So we're looking at other areas where they have readjusted what's affordable by zip code. And by zip code, then we can have true affordability in South Orange for those units that are set aside.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, I'm going to address to Ms. Ford. How does your position on, as clerk of the Essex County Freeholders, interact if you were elected to village president? Would it conflict? Would it lead to?
I think that I can leverage my relationship that I've built on all levels, including the county, the municipality, on the state level, and at the federal level. The clerk to the board is, I'm like the chief of staff for the county legislators. So my role is not legislative, my role is to run the legislative body for the Essex County freeholders. What that will give me, it will give me access to those legislators at the county level. It will give me access to the department heads. It will allow me to leverage that. Also, I interact with all the municipalities in Essex County. I have developed strong relationship with many of the mayors, which all of them pretty much stand with me and support my election for village president because of the strong relationships. I built, through my role as clerk to the board, strong relationships at the state level. I can call and pick up, and also at the federal level, I can call and get a response. So that's the benefit that I would bring to the county, to the village of South Orange.
Ms. Collins, how do you see Ms. Ford's role as clerk of the Essex County Freeholders as interacting if she were possibly the village president? And do you see that as viable?
Honestly, I'm going to refuse to answer this question. One of the original rules that was established was that we would not disparage another candidate. I don't think I'm well positioned to speak to that question, so if it means that I cannot answer it, I will just end my time now.
Okay, thank you. That's very good of you. Then I'm going to ask if we can then move on to the closing statements. I'm sorry, there's not a whole lot of more questions. There's no more time. We're already running over, so. I'm going to ask each candidate now to do a closing statement, and we're going to go in reverse order. Their statement will be for a minute and a half. I'm going to start with you, Ms. Davis Ford. Your closing statement, please.
Well, thank you for this opportunity to have a short discussion. I'm a proud resident of South Orange. I love South Orange, the beloved village, and I really welcome the opportunity to step forward and to build upon what works. There are so many issues, and I just wanted to make note that I didn't forget about that's important to South Orange and the team and slate that I stand with, and that is addressing our taxes challenges, looking for affordability, looking to reach out and leverage our relationships for opportunities to share services. It is also, I think that it's important that in this leadership role that we have the ability to make sure that we work well with all of our partners, with the trustees, with the elected officials, with the residents, so that they know that I listen, that I hear them. I hear what their concerns are. I hear what's important to them. I hear that safety is important to them. I hear that respecting and honoring each other is important to them. So I promise that I will build upon the 12 years of service and expertise that I've had, as well as lead South Orange forward and address all of those concerning as a leader of South Orange Village. I also want to take this opportunity to recognize my husband, my mom, and happy birthday, Dad. He's 88 years old today.
Thank you. And now we're going to hear from Sheena Collins.
Thank you all again. It has been so exciting being here tonight. I hope that you take the opportunity to get to know all the candidates. We're less than 2 weeks away from a really exciting election, but normally we only have about 10% of voters who turn out. So whatever decision you make, whether it's for me or for my colleague, Trustee Davis Ford, make sure you get to the polls. With that said, I want your vote on May 14th. I I don't want to sort of maybe get your vote. I want your vote. I think I bring incredible excitement to this town. I know so many of you in the audience right now because we've worked together. We've worked together on initiatives, on events, on flag raisings, on really celebrating the diversity and the excitement that is South Orange. It is almost too hard for me to contain. So we have those policy objectives. They're all on my website, and I want to be clear about something. I do believe that I work with a team, but there are people who initiate, there are people who lead, and there's people who support measures. On my website, sheenacollum.com/accomplishments, you will see specifically what I have led and initiated with the corresponding links so you understand my level of involvement. I find that sometimes women don't want to say I, and they would rather just say we, but I think it's important for women to be able to say I when we've accomplished something great for our community, and I believe that I've been able to do that over the past 4 years. I do want to do a shout out to my mom and dad who aren't even paying attention, but my dad and mom in Florida, thank you for the donation.
Okay, that concludes then our village president, and I would now welcome your applause. We're going to excuse them now, and we're going to take just 5 minutes so that we can set up for the next round, okay? So, come back in 5 minutes. Back to I live by the library's rules. So I'm briefly going to try to introduce this crowd. And okay. How we're going to do this is first I want to read the rules of the road again here. I think we went over them at the beginning, but I want to go over them now for the audience. You'll recall that this is a forum devoted to hearing the views only of the candidates running for village trustee. So we can only address issues that come before them. And all of the audience questions and candidates' remarks must follow the league policy of being concerned with issues, not personalities. I will not allow any abusive, personalized, or irrelevant questions or remarks. And you already know that the audience questioners should use the cards provided to write their questions and to whom it is directed. The question should address only those issues that come before this body and to be voted upon. And I won't I'm going to try to avoid any redundancy. And I've got Tim back here sorting and making sure, because all of you are going to ask, 3 questions, and there's going to be a lot of duplication. So we want to avoid that. The questions may be addressed to a particular candidate, but all the candidates will have the opportunity to respond. After a candidate responds, there will be no discussion from the floor. I'm going to ask you again to hold your applause. This is very important now because we want to ensure that every single one of the candidates does get a fair shake in speaking. They have such a short period of time. So we have to do all we can to cooperate and help them. There will be, as a courtesy to the candidates, please turn off all cell phones and other electronic devices now, and please refrain from taking any pictures during the debate. No independent videography. Okay. Are we okay now? Let's see if Dawn can figure out who all these people are. Okay. And I'm going to start here with, they have to cuddle. So it's going to have to really be a good, cozy, civil debate here. The first candidate we have here, and they're even going to have to share microphones. Look at that. So the first candidate we have is Stacy Borden, and next to Stacy is Bobby Brown, and is it Donna Collier? Collier. Cole, okay, maybe I'll remember that one. Donna Collier, Edward Grossi, Toshi Davis, Summer Jones, Matt Wansky, Ed Moore, he's big, but he's hiding there. And then Bob Zuckerman, okay, I think that's it. Where they've drawn for opening positions, speaking. We're going to have opening statements for each of the candidates for 1.5 minutes. And then we're going to have the prepared questions. There's 2 prepared questions, and each of them will have an opportunity to answer those 2 prepared questions. And then we'll take some questions from you from the floor. We'll have time probably for only about 3 questions, I'm sorry, but we'll do the best we can. So make them pithy, okay? All right, then we're going to start with the first opening. Let me see here, we got, you weren't around, Ms. Collier, Ms. Jones, and Mr. Zuckerman, but you got to be, Ms. Collier, you luckily got to be number 1. So tell me when to start. Okay. Yes, Ms. Collier, you are going to start, and it will be for 1.5 minutes.
Okay, so I'm Donna C. from Line C. I moved to South Orange on Valentine's Day in 2003. I'm a typical middle child. I was raised in a blue-collar Michigan town, the product of a public school education, K through my BA at Michigan State University. My mom, a deeply loved teacher, principal, with the help of my dad, instilled learning values in all of us that still drive me today. That's why I support SOPAC, I'm on the board there, and its work in delivering arts education, and why I donate time to get kids excited about STEM. Like many empty nesters in the room, I have a large and far-flung family who feed my soul and shape my values. I have 30 years of audit, finance, and strategy at PricewaterhouseCoopers, which uniquely qualifies me to govern every aspect of our finances. I worked on strategic negotiations with corporates, governments, and nonprofits. I'll use those negotiating skills here on your behalf. No matter the topic, bond, offerings, new developments, merging services, my deep finance and strategy skills are going to count, and count nicely. I retired PwC to start my own organic food company and feel that those startup skills are also going to benefit us here in the village. I hope you'll vote for me on May 14th and for my ticket, Line C.
Thank you. And the next speaker is Edward Grossi.
Hi, my name is Ed Grossi. I recently moved to South Orange here with my fiance. We moved here for the reasons a lot of people come to South Orange. We needed somewhere close to the train because she commutes into school, and we liked the downtown. I was born and raised in Essex County, New Jersey, lifelong resident of North Caldwell/Montclair area. And I moved here because I need to be close to a new job in Uni. I'm an attorney. I've practiced litigation for about 10 years. You know what an attorney does. It suits one well, I think, to be a member of the Board of Trustees in terms of analyzing issues and looking forward to see how things you decide now may impact things going forward. What I want to focus, given that as a trustee, you have a limited amount of time, limited amount of energy to address all the various issues going in town. I want to focus on what can provide the best return for South Orange in terms of moving us forward and growing our town. And that's focusing on downtown. 2 items I want to focus on if I'm elected to the Board of Trustees are making sure that downtown stays cleaner. We can't expect people to come in and invest in their business here if we don't keep downtown pristine. If we don't invest in our city, people aren't going to want to come invest in us. In addition, in relation to that, we have to focus on actually getting development projects completed. In my line of work, there's 2 types of attorneys. There's attorneys who kill deals, and there's attorneys who knows how to make deals happen. And I want to focus on making deals happen.
Thank you. Bob Zuckerman is the next speaker.
Hi, everybody. I am Bob Zuckerman, and I am a candidate for the Board of Trustees on Line C. I want to thank the League of Women Voters and all of you for being here this evening. I am a almost 6-year resident of South Orange. I live here with my husband, Grant Newman, who's in the back there in the West Montrose section. Many of you, though, may know me for my most recent job, which is I spent the last 5.5 years as Executive Director of the South Orange Village Center Alliance, which is the downtown nonprofit organization. I was very happy to hear one of my opponents, Ed, say that he likes the downtown. I like it too. In my role as SOFCA Director, I spearheaded the 28 new business openings in our downtown, and I even went above and beyond. I put my money where my mouth was and invested in our downtown. I'm one of the co-owners of Pet Wants, if you're familiar with that store on South Orange Avenue. But I also accomplished a lot of other things at the South Orange Village Center Alliance. We improved our streetscape, we brought new murals, new trash cans, new lighting to underneath the trestle. We do great events like Play Day. In fact, I'm still working with SOFCA now to help them raise much needed funds for Play Day. And I want to take that experience that I've had over the last 5.5 years, rebuilding our downtown, to put that experience to work for all of you in all 10 neighborhoods here in South Orange on the Board of Trustees, and I hope I can earn your support. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next speaker is Matt Wonsky.
Hi, how are you? My name is Matt Wonsky. I'm born and raised in South Orange. I want to thank you all for coming out this evening. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this evening, and thanks to the library for having us in here. As I said, I'm born and raised in town. I've been here 27 years of my entire life. I did K through 8 from Marshall, Jefferson, South Orange Middle School. I went to Seton Hall Prep for high school. Had little decision in that. As some of you may know, my family owns the Town Hall Deli. We recently opened Morgan's in 2015, the liquor store on Irvington Avenue. We have since sold it. That said, I have lived in town my whole life. I lived in Third and Valley for a year, and I just purchased a property on Irvington Avenue, a condo, 200 Irvington Ave, so I'm a neighbor as well, and a taxpayer. What I bring to the table is my experience in business and dealing with the town. I've been very fortunate to deal with all of the aspects of the town. I deal with the building department, the code department, health department, police, fire, DPW, and I'm so very fortunate to be able to work with these people every day. In my experience at Town Hall Deli, one can relate, when I get a product at the deli, in order to save money and keep costs down, if I get cabbage from a purveyor that just sells vegetables, I go to a guy and just say, you know what, I need cabbage. I need a lot of it, and I need it at a good price and a good quality. And these are the types of things I want to make sure that we're bringing to the table as trustees on my slate, to make sure that we're not paying $500 for a hammer in a construction job, to make sure we're not putting period roofs on buildings that don't need period roofs. And I ask for your vote on May 4th.
Thank you. Now we're going to hear from Ed Moore.
Hi, my name is Ed Moore. I've lived in South Orange about 8 years. My wife and I moved here then, and since then, my daughter, her husband, her 2 kids live in South Orange, and my son, his wife, and his 2 kids live in South Orange. So I think we're kind of dedicated to the community. We've shown our commitment. I'm retired now. Before I retired, I worked in human resources, primarily in the financial services industry, and I've done acquisitions, divestitures, and all the other awful things HR people do. I left that industry, and for the last 10 years, I worked for 2 nonprofits, one a startup and one dealing with women's issues. As far as my work in the community, I've done a lot of work as a civilian, so to speak, working on issues that we've talked about here. The primary one is Scotland Road. Through the West Montrose Neighborhood Association, which I'm the president, we have been hassling our own village officials, the county, for many years, and finally we have a plan, I think it's in place, to redo Scotland Road. Dig it up, replace the 1890s plumbing, and resurface it, etc. My other affiliation is I am on the management committee for 2 Towns for All Ages, which is a senior organization developed with cooperation of both South Orange and Maplewood, kind of like sharing services. And we've worked together like for 3 or 4 years and really put together a solid a senior program for both communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to hear from Bobby Brown.
Hi, my name is Bobby Brown. I've lived in South Orange for 11 years. My quick background is I went to Notre Dame, played football. I then went to the NFL, went back to Notre Dame for law school, practiced law, went to Yale, got my MBA. Then I decided to work in finance, back to law. Now I'm at the intersection of law and finance. The reason I rushed through that is because my background is not what's important. Why are you here? Why are you here on a Thursday night in a somewhat warm public library? Not to hear about my background. You're here because you want South Orange to be different and better in 5, 10, 20 years from now. And what's going to make it different and better? Is it going to be Facebook likes? Is it going to be my legacy and what I did here in town? Is it going to be the mailers that I send or the number of lawn signs that I have? No. It's going to be people. It's going to be people on the board. It's going to be people in the town working together. What really matters is I'm a father. I'm a husband, a coach, a mentor. I'm a neighbor, I'm a friend. But that father role is what provoked me to run. When I looked at the force report and I saw that 14-year-olds, 5 of them, all black, were the subject of force, I said I have to do something. South Orange is going to be different and better because all of us are going to work together. The Black Lives Matter sign that we wave and post is great, but we got to do more. And I know there's a bunch of people in here that help us do that, and I want your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next speaker is going to be Toshi Davis.
It was always unfortunate when I follow Bobby. He's on my line, but he always steals my line, so you know, it's difficult. My name is Toshi Davis. This is my second tour of duty in South Orange. I graduated from Columbia High School. I went on to University of Pennsylvania to major in economics, got my bachelor's degree at Northwestern, in my MBA at Northwestern, and then came back, and I've been back in South Orange for 16 years. The main reason that I'm running, or what motivated me to run, is my 10-year-old son, who grows inches by the day. I want him to feel safe and protected and welcomed in South Orange. And I'm not sure that that happens based on the use of force report. I'm also interested in making sure that the town grows. I have a lovely little house right on Fielding Court that was in a sweet little place that the tax assessors forgot. And now they found it. I want to work on, no one can ever promise you to reduce taxes, but you can work on getting rateables in town, working and creating spaces where you can have the right kind of economy, economic growth, and we can at least slow the growth. I also am interested in running because our towns are going to have to invest in our schools. And while it was thought that that vote was going to happen before we were in office, it looks like voting on school improvement is going to happen after we're in office. I will tell you, in Line D and in me, you have a parent who cares about our schools, cares how we invest, cares about the spaces in this town. I came here intentionally, and I want to see the town grow, and I want my son to grow.
Thank you. And now Stacy Gordon.
Hi, I'm Stacy Trimble.
You gotta have a microphone.
Yeah. There are a lot of people behind all those books. Okay, I'm Stacy Trimble Gordon. I've been here in town for 34 years. I'm a partner with my husband in Stacy Electric, and we recently sold the business to Service Professionals, a plumbing and heating HVAC company. It was a great merger. Partnering with them was a really good idea. We had 2 ideas that didn't get together and then finally got together. I grew up in Montclair. I saw my parents volunteering when I was a little tiny kid for the League of Women Voters, the Junior League, the Dramatic Club, the PTA. And of course we got dragged along to all those events and had to do our thing. When I moved into South Orange, I was always interested in volunteering, and actually I volunteered all my life. I joined the South Mountain YMCA, the Rotary Club, the Domestic Violence Response Team, Community Emergency Response Team. So what my volunteer experience brings to the Village of South Orange is integrity, and Stacy Electric is service with integrity, and it brings accountability. So I'm here to make sure that what I say is really going to get done. And my concerns are for senior citizens, and my concerns are for one way of looking at taxes differently to be able to see if there's a way to roll it on.
Thank you. And the final opening statement is going to come from Summer Jones.
Hi, my name is Summer Jones. I have lived in South Orange for 3.5 years. I grew up in a town called East Windsor, which is exit 8 off of the Turnpike. East Windsor is a town that I consider diverse, from race to economic situation to the ages of parents in town. My hometown very much reminds me of South Orange, with the exception of the raccoons versus the cows that I had to grow up with. Our school system was shared between 2 towns, and my father owned a restaurant. It was there that I learned the value of hard work. I worked there as a waitress after school, on weekends, and on holidays. At work, I learned the value of the dollar, of providing good customer service, of figuring out people's needs and balancing it all. I had not realized at the time that those attributes would define me in life. When I chose Seton Hall as undergrad, it was because it was small and close enough to my family. It was there that I discovered my love for computers, and in my last semester in college, I took a startup help desk technician role. As a woman, I received much less than the male peer that was hired during the same week as me doing the same exact job. My father's influence, I was raised by my father. My father's influence taught me to just take the role and work as hard as I can. And that advice got me to where I am today. I'm currently the Assistant Vice President of Technical Support Services at Montclair State University. There I manage a multi-million-dollar budget. I coordinate large-scale projects and ensure that things are completed on time. I also manage a staff of 125 people. Please vote for me.
Okay, nope. We're going to move right along here, and we're going to now go into the prepared questions. And I'm going to start with you, Ms. Borden. Each of the candidates is going to get 1 minute to answer this question. We prepared it, so they're going to be pithy. So the question, South Orange is in the process of developing a new master plan. Part of the definition of a master plan is, quote, a blueprint that depicts current land uses and guides decisions for both growth and conservation, end quote. Where would you plan for growth and where would you plan for conservation in 1 minute?
Okay, so the areas of development are going to be South Orange Avenue, Irvington Avenues, and Valley Street. I do believe in mixed use, parking for tenants, commuters, and citizens. And I would like to see South Orange be a much more walkable town, especially for seniors. And for the parks and areas, I'd like to see more ability to walk between Maplewood and South Orange. So the bike path, get that finished and going all the way through to Maplewood. I think that's it. That's what I'd like to see.
Okay, Mr. Brown, can you address that?
I love that the question says the blueprint, right? The blueprint. We have to finish the master plan, because without the blueprint, I think it is going to be an ad hoc, project by project scenario, and there is no real streamlined and agreed upon decision. So once you have that blueprint, then you can worry about the growth. As Stacy already pointed out, the commercially zoned areas are the places that you would want the growth. I think that you can have growth and conservation in the sense that certain areas or certain buildings in the growth zones or in the commercial zones can also be reused or adaptive purposes, such like the Buy Right, the new Buy Right, the auto parts store, Napa Auto Parts. I'd love to see that reused. We all go to breakfast at a particular place, Jackie and Sons, I think was a great use of that space. I want to make sure that we protect all of the recreational and all the outdoor uses, and that's my time.
Okay. Ms. Collier, where would you plan for growth and where would you plan for conservation?
So I like to think about this in terms of principles. Guiding principles to me in terms of planning and development should be that we should have a walkable village, should have lots of green space, it should have the right commercial and housing stock to support future villagers throughout their lifetime. And so what does that mean? It means that we need, along with our beautiful, expensive housing stock, we need some affordable housing. We need a place for our young people to live when they come back from school. Young families, where are they going to live? Empty nesters and senior citizens that are interested in downsizing need affordable housing. And so that's a big part of the principles that I would think about. I'd also think about conserving our green space. I'm in our green space all the time, and indeed trying to expand it and making our town more walkable as a result. That and climate change, we have to think about how to reduce our climate footprint. Those are my principles, and then we make decisions on that basis afterward.
Mr. Grassi, where would you plan for growth and for conservation?
I'll start with conservation first, which I think is a pretty easy answer on there. Our parks and our woodlands are off limits to development. I think that master plan should say that. Those shouldn't be considered going forward. It's important to preserve those. As to growth, I mean, obvious area, you start from the center and go out. You got to focus on the core downtown area, see the opportunities to grow and expand as close to the train station as possible, and then move out. And I think that the Valley Street area represents a unique area of growth with conservation, kind of as Bobby said. I think going down Valley Street, you want to look to conserve at least the nature of it. You don't want to turn it into a cookie cutter type thing with just lots of big apartment buildings and generic commercial spaces. You want to preserve the scene, in a sense. Remember what was there as we move forward. I think that creates a more interesting, vibrant neighborhood rather than, multi-use, generic apartment buildings along the highway.
Thank you. And would you move the other microphone down too, please, right there in front of you? Yes. Thank you. Okay. Now we're going to hear from Ms. Davis. What would be your plan for growth and what for conservation?
So I think when we look at conservation, we have to think about, of course, our public spaces like this library. So when we think about conservation, it's about investing in the spaces. Clearly we need it. We're here. And we need to use, sure, and we need to use the spaces in ways that fuel economic development. If we reimagine this space and invest in it appropriately, think about this as a co-working space for people on the weekend, for elderly when they come in and they need spaces to meet, for our children when they need books. This is an anchor space that then you've got real pedestrian traffic that can feed into commercial spaces. We need to develop in South Orange Avenue, in Irvington Avenue, in Valley Street. We need to make sure that development is in line with the neighborhoods that are there, and that they bring appropriate ratables. I think when we talk about conservation, we also need to look at our historic spaces that are owned by our residents and see what we can do to help support them. What grants can we do? What programs can we bring in from the state that will help our residents keep up their old and cherished homes, but that are a pain to upkeep? That's where I'm.
Ms. Jones? Yes. Do I need to read the question?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm actually a part of the Master Plan Management Committee, and I want to just first commend all the ambassadors that put together all of the meetings, which numbered over 150. Like most towns, we have room for improvement, which includes bringing more commercial spaces, commercial businesses to areas such as downtown, Valley Street, and Irvington Avenue. As taxpayers, we especially need this to ensure that there are more ratables in town so that we're not paying 90% of the taxes. As we strive for walkability in town, we need to make sure it's safe. I'm sure many of you in this room can tell a story about crossing the road and potentially getting hit. As an arts town, we need to find ways to highlight these spaces where some are not visible. I would also encourage adoption of accessibility, more areas that pertain to accessibility. For people that are in town, there's a lot of people that are in wheelchairs, that have walkers, that have canes. My aunt is one of them who comes and visits me, and it's very hard for her to get around town. We also need to look at increasing our approach to sustainability. Sustainability and preservation of green spaces.
Mr. Wansky.
In terms of conservation, I think our parks and our green spaces need to be well maintained and taken care of, as to echo everybody else's same statements. The big areas for development are obviously South Orange Ave, Irvington Ave, and Valley Street. We're in a very unique position in South Orange. We're a destination town. Developers want to come here. They want to be here. We have a train line. We have a diverse community. We have a safe community. We have a clean community. And obviously, all of those things can be worked on and improved, but there's a reason all of us are in this room today. We're all vested in this community in one way or another. And I think it's very important in the master plan process and going forward to make sure that we're listening to our residents and to make sure the people that are directly affected by it have an input and some sort of say. That all said, we need ratables. And a place to do that, Valley Street, South Orange Ave, and Irvington Ave. Often forgot, our neighbors to the east in Newark, but the second largest portion of your tax bill goes to the county. We can leverage our relationships with the county to make sure if they get ratables, their taxes go down, their tax base goes up, ours can go down too.
Okay, thank you. Next is Mr. Moore.
Thank you. As was said earlier, the master plan is only a blueprint. It's a huge job. We'll move forward on a slow pace. Now, I don't mean that in a negative way, but it's just a huge job. I identified the same issues of growth. South Orange Avenue, Valley Street. Personally, I think I like Irvington Avenue as my choice. I think that gives us a pathway to Seton Hall that we've been trying to join in our community. Other key issues for me are that we have a walkable village, as we mentioned, and also we have the infrastructure in the 21st century that supports the town. Other things on the housing area, affordable housing that exceeds the state mandate, the missing middle, housing for those who are in the middle, and also I think shared services has to be something that we put there as part of our growth in the future. And quickly on conservation, parks and open spaces, I think Riverwalk, half done. We have $1 million grant from the state. Why don't we finish it? Also, we need to develop what we call pocket parks in downtown and in our neighborhoods.
Mr. Zuckerman.
Thank you. So, I agree with my colleagues here about South Orange Avenue, West South Orange Avenue, Irvington Avenue, and Valley Street. I would like to actually focus, if I get on the Board of Trustees, if I'm so privileged, on Valley Street and Irvington Avenue. Seton Village, which is where Irvington Avenue is, newly rebranded or recently rebranded, had a lot of energy a few years ago, and then it kind of dissipated. So I think one of the things that I'd like to accomplish is take that on and organize a merchants association to really help that area. But I think in terms of development versus conservation or preservation, it's not necessarily a choice. I think you can do both. I think obviously the parks and our green spaces for conservation, but adaptive reuse is really important in terms of preservation. Village Hall is a perfect example of that, where we're saving the taxpayers $7 million, and yet we're going to get a fabulous new restaurant, beer garden, and catering facility with an absolutely recreated exterior. So,
Okay, thank you. Hold on to that microphone.
I'm going first.
Yeah.
Let me guess.
Well, yes. How about that?
Go back the other way.
We're going to go back the other way. And yes, so the next question, and you'll be the first, Mr. Zuckerman, is the New Jersey Force Report, published in 2018, studied the use of force by municipal police departments in New Jersey during the years 2012-2016. During that period, they found 104 uses of force by the South Orange Police, or 45.2 incidents per 1,000. This is a higher rate than 385 other New Jersey police departments. Do you think that this is an acceptable rate? If not, How would you work to improve this situation if elected?
Thank you. So I don't think it's an acceptable rate, but I think we have to go beyond, quite frankly, the construct of the question. Because for me, it wasn't so much the number of incidents of force, but the astronomical percentage of incidents of force against people of color. That was my main concern. And so and I think a lot of other people's concern as well. So I think what we need to do is we need to look at other models in other places in other municipalities, like New York City, for example, where they have police community councils. All neighborhoods have one. And the police and the residents actually interact with each other on a regular basis. And that's great for communication. It's great for people to learn how to trust the police and for the police to actually learn who their residents are in South Orange. But also, in addition to that, we need to not wait for reporters to come out with statistics like this. We need to produce those ourselves. So that's something that I think is an important thing that we should be looking at in terms of actually having metrics for those types of issues.
Okay, thank you. Now, Mr. Moore, can you address that?
Sure. To answer the question, obviously it's not acceptable. Right now, myself and Bobby Brown are working on the village committee that's dealing with this issue. As Bob said, the numbers say one thing, and I think we can look at the numbers, and I think we have to have a better way to track the numbers so we, as citizens, can see what this really looks like. The thing that sort of got me most was the anecdotal comments at the meeting of people from the black community who told these, tearful stories in some cases of what's happened to them and their children. This is where the hard work is. We can put together a report and give us numbers we can look at and say it's pretty good, but we have to fix this other part of why is this relationship gone bad over the years.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wansky.
Safety and security are at the top of the highest grossing businesses in the country. It's very important to all of us and everyone in the community. People choose to live in a place because they feel safe. They want to feel that their home won't get broken into. They want to feel that their car won't get broken into. I fully support the community police collaborative that's going on, that Ed's a part of, and Deborah Davis Ward helped to start. I think as a part of this community collaborative, we need to remember that every aspect of government should have that. As I said in my earlier statement, we're all in this together. We're in this room for a reason. We're all part of this community. When I grew up in this town, I'm young, so I think I can get away with saying that and not sounding different. We had DARE officers in Marshall School. We had police officers that were community resource officers. They came to school, they played basketball with us, they brought donuts for us, making fun of themselves. And I had a relationship with all of those police officers, as did many of my friends in all walks of life growing up. And we always had a positive relationship. And I want to make sure that that can happen again. We're very top heavy in our police department right now.
Okay.
I'm out of time.
All right. Ms. Jones, it's difficult.
First off, I don't find the rate acceptable at all. And many members, as well as many members of the community, I was actually shocked by the use of force to learn that a town that I owned a home in and has one of the highest rates actually spurred me to run. It was one of the reasons why I chose to run. The numbers are really telling. I'm sure Bobby will go through the numbers, but I will too. It's 844% more likely to have force used against you if you're under the age of 18. It's 21% more chance of being arrested. Okay. When I hear these numbers, I actually think about my nephews who come to visit me every summer. One of them is 5'3". He's 10 years old and he still plays with stuffed animals. It's a concern for people in the community. I do appreciate that there was a community collaborative, police collaborative put together. I am encouraged that we are pursuing implicit bias and differential treatment training. I also look at the numbers of department diversity. There were 10 out of 15 new hires of people of color.
That's where it comes. Ms. Davis.
Hi, so again, this is the reason why I chose to run. Again, I have a 10-year-old son, and when I listen to my friend who has a 10-year-old daughter who's playing in front of her house, the 10-year-old child who's a girl was stopped by the police. And my friend was panicked. My friend is white, her child is black, and she never heard a police officer address her in her lifetime like that. I hope that my son will have an experience with the police that Mr. Wansky did, but that's not the expectation we can have right now. So we need bias training. We need random video checks. of the stops that are happening. We need community policing, and yes, we do need the police to engage. Am I willing to work with the police? Of course. I work with the captain to work on making sure that parking and traffic patterns around Marshall is okay. When I was PTA president, am I willing to sit and work with them? Yes. Yes, I want them to keep my house safe, but someone on my block was broken into last weekend, and I have a police officer that lives on my block. So safety is an issue, but keeping my son safe is an issue as well, and that's why I'm running.
Thank you. And would you please take the phone out? Mr. Grossi.
So obviously the number's not acceptable and we need to do better and we can do better. And to me, that solution involves talking to both sides, talking to the police, seeing, getting an explanation from them why this happened, what do you need from us to do a better job on this. And it involves listening. I mean, for me, this is a listening question more than anything else. I have not dealt with those experiences, but I know that the most fundamental right you have is the right to feel safe. That's what everyone's looking for. That's why we're all here. We want people to feel safe and prosper. And if residents in town are telling us that they don't feel safe with the way our police are doing things, that's something that has to be addressed and has to be dealt with. And the solution is, like Toshi said, community policing initiatives, get police more involved in the community, get them out of cars, get them walking around. If the police know the residents of this town, know the children of all races, they're gonna be less likely to inflict violence against them. So more community policing measures are the solution to this problem.
Ms. Collier.
So I served as the
Bring it up just a little closer.
Sure. I served as the Chief Diversity Officer in my business unit at PwC. And one of the things they asked me to do is, we're losing our women, go into a room and fix this problem. This is not the way you fix these kinds of problems. I redefined the issue to address women, to address race, to address LGBTQ issues. This is what we need to do in our community, is to get everyone together and understand that we have all different kinds of perspectives and backgrounds, and we need to talk to each other more. I put together a forum with all of those people, and we created some solutions to the problems. We created training that we're talking about here. We created forums where people can learn and work together on client engagements. We created all kinds of ways for people to just better understand each other. We have some of that happening in our town, but not nearly enough, and I'd like to do more.
And thank you. Mr. Brown.
The number is too high, the data is too vague, and no, I wasn't surprised. I'm surprised that my neighbors are surprised. This is the America that we live in. And if we're gonna be a progressive town, let's admit that this is the America that we live in and say no more. We wanna be the example in protecting our parks, protecting our affordable housing. Protect your neighbor. My two neighbors, Scott, John, two white dudes that I drink beer with a lot. They're the first people I went to and said these numbers are unacceptable, because those are the people I want to protect me, protect my sons. Everyone in here, you came because you're engaged. Let's not pretend we're surprised. And no, we can't just point the finger at the officers. I think our officers do a great job. They can do better. But they're not going to do better if we don't put the pressure on them. They're not going to do better if we don't force them to have random checks of these, random selection of these traffic stops. We don't come up with meaningful ways. The first time a 14-year-old engages with a police officer should not be the subject of use of force. Basketball leagues. Who better to tell someone, teenagers and adults, what to do when engaged with an officer than an officer?
Okay, thank you. Ms. Gordon.
Thank you. Okay. So the first thing is the Community Police Collaboration Committee, I think, is a very powerful group that's going to be formed, a new great committee. I think we all have to be responsible for our safety, and I think in partnership with the police, we can have a conversation about what it is to set up being safe for ourselves and our community. And do the policing for other people. If you see something, say something. But I think it's very, very important to have a conversation about what it is for me to be safe in my town. How can I be safe walking around? And therefore, have that conversation with the rest of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the prepared questions. Now I'm going to move to the questions that I received from you, the audience. And I'm going to start with you, Ms. Davis. So could you move that microphone down? Thank you. All right. Okay. In 1 minute, what strategies do you have in mind for supporting seniors aging in place in South Orange?
Thank you. So we've talked about that quite a bit, and I think there are a couple of strategies we talked about as a team and we'd like to see in place. I just want to say my son has been taken care of by a babysitter on my block who cannot age in place and talks to me often about how she's going to North Carolina. And I've watched my block turn over and it's been troubling. We've got to come up with solutions around making zoning more friendly for homeowners who are considering bringing people into their home to try to reduce cost. We need to help our seniors with strategies around maybe affordable housing in town that could be, that they could choose to move into. And if they want to age in place in their home, what strategies can we do around taxes to at least for seniors help pull down their taxes versus others in town? I think it's working through those strategies, but I really think if we figure out owner-occupied strategies with zoning, maybe there's opportunities for them to use their property differently and allow them to stay in place and offset some of their tax costs.
Ms. Jones.
So this evening I met a woman named Gail who lived in Newstead, and she moved to the Gaslight. And she moved there because her taxes are $22,000 for a senior. And what she did was she chose a complex that she can afford with whatever money she has. I don't know what money she has. So she actually chose somewhere that she can afford. What I would really do is really look at what is available in town and see if there's ways that we can help seniors move into some of those locations. I would also start with training before people even move out of their homes. How could you help them? What grants can you do? What federal solutions are available? And then try to figure out a way to keep them in their homes if they want to stay in their homes. But I think it all comes down to education and making sure that there are ways that we can, as a community, work together to help people. I mean, there's also younger people that want to age in place, and with taxes as high as they are, there are people that are moving out. So we definitely have to look at rateables.
You can finish the sentence. Okay. Mr. Wansky.
The seniors of our community are among the most important people in our community. They've been here for quite some time. They can teach us something. Those who don't study history are bound to repeat it. In terms of getting them to age in place, one of the most important things to do is help lower taxes. Our goal, and my goal specifically, if I'm lucky enough to be elected by this wonderful group of people here, is to make sure that we're spending money responsibly, having developers bring in areas for senior housing. The current senior housing levels that we have in this town are quite low, and they're not acceptable for a town of this size. My parents are personally moving out. Only one of them is a senior citizen. They might kill me for saying this, but it's too late now. I already said it. It's one of the things that inspired me to run. Nobody in this room should feel that they have to move out just because they can't afford it, and they don't feel welcome here anymore. There's things we can do to control spending and make sure that people can age in place and feel comfortable and have a comfortable rest of their life.
Mr. Moore.
Okay, I think we've covered the subject of affordable housing as a key issue, but there are other things that make life pleasant for seniors in our community. We have the Two Towns for All Ages, which is an organization put together by South Orange and Maplewood. It was an effort to link senior services, both communities, and sharing. So now seniors our town can go to Maplewood for classes and vice versa. We were looking at trying to get a transportation system running between two towns by using the jitneys when they're off duty, so to speak, during the day. So I think we're working on some things, but I think the key issue is the housing. I'll just say this last thing. There is a program in the state called the Senior Freeze, and it means you can freeze your real estate taxes, once you qualify. And there are, things you have to be income level and other things, but you should look into that. Check the tax office; they can give you some information on that.
Mr. Zuckerman?
So this is a really great question. I spent 3 years on the board of an organization called the Stonewall Community Development Corporation. And Stonewall in New York City, and Stonewall's mission is to provide and hopefully build housing for LGBT seniors. Now, under the federal housing laws, you can't just build, they have to be LGBT friendly, so they have to be open to all, but it's definitely an issue in the LGBT community for people who, when they become older, there's a whole cultural shift that happens. So it's a really important thing. In terms of aging in place, I think the answer is that we do need more strategic mixed-use development, which is going to provide a greater range of housing units, including more affordable housing units as well. But I think we also have to look at the whole shared services piece, because that's going to help keep our taxes stable. We don't want them to skyrocket, and that's a critically important part of this issue.
Thank you. Ms. Borden?
So I'm one of those seniors, and I would think I would speak for a lot of them, but I don't want to leave my house. And I don't know what to do about it. I have had conversations with my team about looking into our education taxes, which are 57% of our tax, and seeing if there is a conversation that we could have legislatively at the state level to change that, and whether that become a not a property tax, a income tax, so that as seniors' incomes go down, the rate goes down, or that we alter how we support the 33% of our students that are in our schools, instead of paying 43% of our our taxes as that in the schools. So we're having that conversation. We'll see what we can do, but I am ready to go to Trenton and have that conversation. Thank you.
Mr. Brown?
Aging in place is a huge issue, and some of the topics that some have already raised, but I'll also say the housing stock, make sure affordable housing is available, the zoning being more creative and allowing some sort of income to offset the property taxes, and then using the senior freeze, but also educating our seniors so they know it's available. The problem with that is if you have a high fixed income, you probably don't qualify. A lot of our seniors don't. So figuring out other ways, having a similar concept, instead of just trying to encourage them to be able to pay the property taxes, come up with some sort of tax credit, if you will, program where if you can volunteer and do something in the schools, do something with our youth, that will count towards your taxes. It's a way to make sure that you encourage involvement and engagement, and the whole diverse aspect of our town take advantage of that, and also protect them from the increasing property taxes. Making sure that it's a sticky place, having the entertainment that seniors want and need. Thank you.
Ms. Collier?
Thank you. So I think the thing that we need to think about is not one size fits all seniors, right? Many of our seniors want to stay in their homes, like Stacy mentioned. Many, are surrounded by a big home that maybe they don't want to necessarily stay in, and they want to live in a more walkable place. They want to be closer to downtown. They want to have access to the restaurants and the entertainment, and easy access. And so this really is a situation where it's not one size fits all, and we have to think about several things we can do, many of which we've talked about. The one thing that we haven't talked about that I think we should is keeping our seniors healthy and helping them with issues that they may have associated with their health, and promoting good healthy habits, and that has to do with walkability as well, and it has to do with great restaurants in town that service all the right food. And so I would echo a lot of what we heard, and I won't repeat it, but I will say that there's more that we can do on the health front.
Mr. Grassi?
I think the master plan should consider and incorporate principles that are dedicated to construction of the type of housing that a senior can downsize into in South Orange. Listen, there's going to come a time in almost any person's life where they're not going to be able to stay in the house they've lived. And so we have to look to ways that they can still stay in town and still afford to live here. And that involves constructing units that they can afford to live in. And the master plan should make that a goal that we look to achieve in development going forward. I would add that I would be, I'll say, concerned about altering zoning laws in residential neighborhoods. You have to consider the long-standing effects that might have on the development of these areas and also the potential for abuse of these zoning changes and what it might do to those neighborhoods.
Okay, don't give away a microphone. We only have time for one more question from the audience, and I'm going to start with you, Mr. Grossy. Anyway, so in 1 minute, could you please speak about your plans for the Irvington Avenue Business Corridor? And many thanks from, that's what they said on the card. Okay. The Irvington Avenue Business Corridor, what plans would you have for that?
I mean, my plans for that would seek to promote policies that develop it in a way that brings in new business and then can accommodate more interest from Seton Hall and try and bring more students to town and get them more involved in the city. I mean, I don't think Irvington Avenue specific has much of a different interest as opposed to South Orange Avenue. It's the same concerns you're dealing with, so.
Okay, Ms. Collier.
So Irvington Avenue is a great opportunity. It really is. There's, there are students in the area, there are homeowners in the area, lots of diverse businesses there already. And it really has this potential to just be this funky part of our town. And it has potential to be student flavored, I'll say, and really make this town feel more like a town that has a large university in it. And so I would look to encourage more of those kinds of businesses. And so let's look at other student towns. Let's look at the businesses that are serving those students and the surrounding populations. Let's do some recruiting with those businesses. Let's say, hey, do you want to open up another branch in South Orange? Do you want to open up another restaurant here in South Orange? Let's mirror some of the successes that we see in other towns that house large student populations and leverage off of that success, because that's just a perfect opportunity there to do more of it.
Mr. Brown, your thoughts?
As one of the commercial zones in our town, a lot of opportunity there at Irvington Avenue. I think it starts with a meaningful and productive relationship with Seton Hall, creating a partnership where we look at them as using all of our resources and not giving back. And I think we got to get past that and create a real relationship. I had the fortune of being in South Bend when Notre Dame exploded. I had the fortune of being in New Haven when Yale exploded. It can happen, but it takes really, deflating all of our egos on both sides and saying we got to have a meaningful relationship. In addition, that car wash lot, it's privately owned. They probably don't want to give it up. But that's such good real estate. The retail property there, I think, is perfect for adaptive reuse, and I think having the Temple Bethel there and what it means to that town, having the homes there is perfect for us to have the adaptive reuse. An example, like I said before, is a Jackie & Sons, encouraging someone to come in and create another version of that where you create more traffic, create more continuity with that community.
Thank you, Ms. Gordon.
I would do what I can to work with the South Orange Village Center Alliance and have as many conversations with small boutique stores around the area and try to get more of those into that area. I like Bobby's idea of the car wash, but he owns that. Some adaptive reuse. I'd like to see some housing on top of some of those stores, a little bit more than what's there. But again, having the conversation with the community, with the citizens of Seton Village, of which I'm one of the members. Having a conversation with the police department in there and seeing the master plan, seeing what the master plan comes up with. That's it, thank you.
Mr. Zuckerman.
Thank you. So one of my biggest frustrations running the South Orange Village Center Alliance was that Irvington Avenue and Seton Village was not part of our district. So with the exception of having some of the restaurants sell food at some of our events like Play Day, we really couldn't get that involved in taking on Irvington Avenue. I want to, on day one, or day two, if I'm fortunate enough to be elected, I want to go in and organize those merchants into a real merchants association, which I think is the very, very first step of getting them involved, getting them promoted better, and making something happen there, because we had some real energy, as I mentioned before, with the Seton Village Committee, and then it kind of just dissipated. I want to revive that, and I know that I have the skills and experience to do that. And I went to the College Downtown Conference. It was the first one ever put on by the International Downtown Association. So I have the kind of connections and the background and skills to really make something happen at Seton Village and on Irvington Avenue. I hope to have the chance to do that.
Mr. Moore.
Okay, my vision is one where Irvington Avenue would become pretty much a walking street. We'd have shops there. It would be a passageway between downtown and Seton Hall. South Orange Avenue is too busy. We can never make that slow down. But that street's not that busy. In Montclair on South Park Street, I had a similar situation where a piece of property there was, the rents were 50% rented, and they just redid the whole street, and now it's 100% rented. It's a place where people come to congregate, and it does have those vehicles on it.
Mr. Wansky.
Since this is my last opportunity to speak, thank you again for coming here. I really appreciate it. Irvington Avenue is my house. It's where I live. I'm very vested in the community. My family opened a liquor store there, as I said earlier. We owned a big parcel there. It was the only thing to open in the past 4 years. It was a brand new building. The area is booming. It is one of the most progressive areas of town. A lot of the transplants that are moving into town come into this area, and it's getting revitalized, slowly but surely. One of the things that needs to happen is we need to clean it up. We need to make sure that our grass is cut. We need to make sure that there are planters there. Make sure it gets the same attention that we at the SOVCA give to South Orange Avenue. And that comes from Public Works, it comes from the trustees, it comes from everyone sitting in this room. If you see some garbage, you gotta pick it up. Like I said, it's my house. I'm able to walk to work. I was able to walk to Morgan's when we owned it. It's a really great section of town, and please don't forget about it.
Thank you. Ms. Jones.
I also live in Seton Village, and I echo, I love Seton Village. I love Irvington Avenue, but there is stores that I will walk by because when you look at the storefront, it's not as cleaned up as it was years ago when we worked with Seton Hall. They revitalized Seton Village and they renamed it to Seton Village. They did branding. More recently, the awnings have been changed on one side of the street and not on the other. I would really look to work with the business owners that are there, and I would offer to them, we actually have grants that are in town for commercial spaces that they can apply to. I would work with them to try to apply, because I feel like sometimes, you can gussy it up with just a coat of paint and make it look a little bit better. I would also like more businesses in place. As a student at Seton Hall, I went to El Greco when I was there, and I went to the Chinese food place. But other than that, I would stay on campus. So I would love to extend some things, some opportunities for Seton Hall to come in, maybe a bookstore, etc. She said I could finish my things.
Ms. Davis, you will continue.
Okay, so again, I think what's key in Revitalize, I live very close to Seton Village and walk over there all the time to get Ethiopian food. But I think what's important, right, is to engage the neighbors in the community. It is a very diverse community, and making sure that you understand what the neighbors need and want, and do focus groups. But also, I think Donna had a great point, and it was one of the points I was going to make, which was we have templates for what succeeds in college towns and what succeeds in those kinds of spaces. You need to go to those communities like Evanston, like around Montclair, around in certain areas to figure out what's going to work in that space and work for the neighborhood as well. It needs to work for Seton Hall, but also for the neighborhood. What's going to attract it? Finally, in partnering with Seton Hall, I would ask you, if you have time, drive up to Ivy Hill Park and look at what partnership does. If you look at the partnership they formed with Seton Hall to create those two ballparks, that community worked with Seton Hall and got things in their community that revitalized their park. We can do that, and we can do that in our districts as well.
Thank you. That concludes the questions, and I really appreciate your efforts in getting the questions to us. Now we're going to move, though, because they have to close the library up at some point. But we're going to move to our closing statements with all 9 candidates here. They each get a minute and a half for closing, and we're going to do it in the reverse order to our opening statements. So, Ms. Jones, Summer Jones, is our first speaker. 1.5 minutes. Get your pitch in.
Okay. So I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. It is a Thursday, it's the end of the work week, and it is kind of warm in here. The one thing that I want to say is if I were elected as trustee, one of the things I would focus on is communications in town and centralizing communications. There's a lot of, from a technology perspective, technology touches everything we do, whether it's the master plan, whether it's development, whether it's our school system, and what I see that we can do better is communicate a little bit better. They are definitely working on the website. The website is up, it's running, but there's things that can be improved, such as centralizing communications onto the website. I would also look to bring more smart technology to have the ability to actually pay bills online, to track what you've paid. You can pay bills online, I'm sorry. To actually track your historical data of what you paid, as well as do insurance permits and et cetera. When I decided to run, I joined Donna and Bob on Line C, and that scares me. I joined Donna and Bob on Line C, and I joined them because we're very diverse in our technology skills, with Donna being in finance and audit, with Bob being development, and with me being in technology. And I think that's something that is definitely needed for trustees moving forward. So I do ask you guys to vote for Line C. You can go to yourvoiceourvillage.com, which is our website, and learn about our accomplishments, or check out our mailer that dropped yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Stacy Gordon.
So the first thing I want to say is we have a lot of committees that help support the government that we have here in the village. And I would really encourage and come out to engage you in those committees and have conversations ongoing with the trustees to make sure that you see that your needs are met. And those conversations, if I say that I'm going to do something, I can guarantee you I will accomplish it. That is one of my goals, is to bring accountability to all of the trustees while they're sitting on this government. Thank you.
And the next speaker then is Toshi Davis.
So again, thank you for coming out. It is warm.
Move it up closer.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming out. It is warm. Want to remind you, please vote for Line D. And please know that I have a real commitment to South Orange. It's genuine. I've been here again, second time around, intentionally for 16 years, as opposed to just being a child that we brought here. I believe in transparent governance. I believe in partnering with people and getting things done. I believe in community building. So not only the economic development that we need, but investing in our public spaces in a way that brings people together. And I believe in public safety for all. I believe we all need to be safe. If we're a diverse community, we need to live up to that and make sure that everyone feels welcomed here. So my commitment is real and enduring in terms of South Orange and into the 2 towns. I've been engaged, I will remain engaged, and I look forward to being your trustee.
Thank you. Bobby Brown.
I've been asked several times by some of my friends, are you crazy? You signed up for this, you're not getting paid? And my answer every time is absolutely crazy. I think you have to be be crazy to make things different and better. Each and every one of us has to be crazy. I'm asking you, begging you to vote for Line D on May 14th and allow us to be crazy and be crazy with us. Crazy enough to think that we can keep our senior citizens here, create programming for them, create housing stock, create options in terms of addressing the property tax situation to keep them here. Crazy enough to say that the force report is not who we are and address it head on. Crazy enough to say diversity as we know it. If we're gonna say it's diversity, we have to live it and not just say it. Crazy enough to do a lot of things. Make sure our redevelopment suggests who we are, have an identity, and make sure that it is in alignment with a master plan, a completed master plan. It does take crazy. It takes some hot evenings in a public library sometimes. It takes rolling up your sleeves. It takes saying, I'm crazy enough to protect and serve the brand which got me to move here. I'm crazy enough to protect and serve my neighbor because each and every neighbor in South Orange, I'm talking about South Orange, is just as important as I am. It doesn't matter the age, doesn't matter the race, doesn't matter the socioeconomic status. We have to be crazy enough to be the progressive town that so many people know us as. And guess what? When we do it, the town next to us will do it. And then other towns in the state will do it. And then other places in the United States will do it. It's up to us, and we can't do it because South Orange has so much talent here. Be crazy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ed Moore.
Thank you. I am also on the same slate with Toshi and Bobby, and we sort of came together, as a lot of people do in these groups, through devious ways, but we've been together for about a month now, 6 weeks, and we're best friends. I think we all speak with the same voice. We're into transparency. We see ourselves as the people that make paid professionals. You know, the town has many employees who get paid, and to make sure they're doing their job and delivering the goods that we want from them. We are overseers, we are the approvers, but we're not going to go in and, you know, shovel your snow when it snows, so don't look for that. As far as the schools go, I mean, it's not really in our purview, you know, in this role, but to me, schools are a legacy that we pass on to the next generation, so that, you know, when we're gone, our children and our grandchildren will have a good education, just like we had a good education passed on to us from our parents. So it's not something that we should argue over percentage points. We all should want good school systems and not get involved in that conversation. Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Matt Wonsky.
Let me start by saying I was wrong. I did get another opportunity to speak to you. Yeah, well, I'm not afraid to admit when I'm wrong. That's fine. I'm in the service industry. I have been my whole life. I was on the SOVCA. I've been on the SOVCA for about 5 years. I served with Bob. I was a treasurer for a year. In serving people, you get to meet different faces. You get to meet different personalities. You get to meet people of all walks of life. One of the most important things to our team is being able to work with all of the people in this room, making sure we hear your concerns, hear your what's going on in your life. We are a very accessible group of people. Stacy has a local business. She's in every volunteer community organization you could possibly name and every acronym you could possibly think of. Ed is a resident of Third and Valley, right downtown. He welcomes people to come talk to him. You're welcome to that. You can certainly stop into Town Hall Deli anytime you want. I won't make you buy anything. I will offer you something, most likely. That's why they keep me in the back. Most importantly, I ask for your vote on May 14th, and I ask you to help us move South Orange forward. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy your evening.
And then, thank you. And the next speaker is Bob Zuckerman.
So thank you all again for being here. You know, a famous philosopher who I can't quite remember who it was, said that the character of a person is often defined by the company that you keep. And I think that means a lot in this election. I have two fabulous running mates, Summer Jones and Donna Collier, who together with me, we all complement each other. And we all really want to do the best for South Orange as South Orange moves into the next phase of government. But we're also very blessed in that the three remaining trustees, Walter Clark, Karen Hilton, and Steve Schnall, are supporting us. And that really, really means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to Donna and Summer as well, because there's a lot of good people up on this dais. But they're supporting us because of our experience, and they're supporting us because of the synergy that we bring together. My work in economic development and small business, and Summer's work in IT and communications, and Donna's finance and strategy, and what we can really do for this town. We are ready to hit the ground running on day one. And so if you've liked what you've heard tonight, I would really like to ask you for your vote, and vote for me and my two running mates on Line C. And if you really like what you heard tonight, I hope you'll consider not just supporting us by voting for us, but also helping out on the campaign as well. We've got 12 days to go, and we look forward to all of you voting on May 14th.
Thank you. The next speaker is Edward Grassi.
Thank you. Thank you for moderating. I'm not running because I'm crazy. I might be, but it's open for debate. But I'm running because I think I bring a fair bit of common sense and rational thought to solving problems. And I'm running because I want to apply those skills I have to help move South Orange forward on the Line A ticket. It's not rocket science what you do as a trustee. You listen to a lot of different voices, you weigh a lot of different proposals, you hear from consultants, put it all together, and you pass judgment on what you think is best for the town. You're acting as a fiduciary. That's what I do day in, day out. You trust us with giving us your vote. You trust us with exercising your collective judgment. And you trust us with watching over your money that we collect through taxes, which I want to try and keep as low as possible if anyone is confused about my intent on that. But at the end of the day, if I'm elected as board of trustees, I'm going to focus on finding ways to lower taxes. I'm going to bring a fresh look on these issues. I'm going to bring a different take as to how development should go in South Orange, and I think my voice will be valued, and my judgments and skill set will help all the board reach the best possible decision on any issue it faces.
Thank you. And our final speaker for the evening is going to be Donna Collier.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming. You've heard about our experience and our skill set and our synergies. I'd like to close with two words that describe our Line C ticket, which really are good government. That means we work to stabilize taxes by encouraging development and getting the right rateables into town. That means we hold budget increases to 2% and identify more shared services that reduce costs and improve our interactions with each other and with the village employees. We want to help the village employees find efficiencies that give them the opportunity to grow and learn and then deliver more value in return. We want to make local entrepreneurs who come here to South Orange feel welcome while they flourish. We love our village diversity, we love the walkability, we love our green spaces. Good government means that we're entrusted with these jewels, and they really are jewels, and that we make them better by serving for the public good. It also means that we empower our residents, everybody in this room, to share their voice and wisdom with our village administrators, our trustees, and collectively with our neighbors through all the volunteerism that happens in this town that is just such a big part of who we are. So I guess I'll then summarize and say I'm Donna C. I'm on Line C. I hope you'll vote for me and my colleagues and get some of those synergies that we're talking about and put this amazing set of skills onto the Board of Trustees.
Thank you. I really want to thank these candidates, and I know you do. They did a great job. Going to turn it back over to Ms. Michelle Bobrow.
Thank you all for coming and for listening. I'm sorry to say you have a very difficult job ahead of you because all of the candidates presented wonderful views, great choices. I don't envy you. Thank you for coming. I want to remind you that you have until next Tuesday to have the county clerk receive your application for vote by mail, and make sure you come out on Tuesday, May 14th, 6 in the morning until 8 at night. There are still positions for poll workers available, and League of Women Voters is one of the organizations. We're only 99 years old. Wait till February 14th, we're going to party. We invite you to join us. Membership is available is open any anyone 18 and older, except there's a special rate for students, and there are applications on the back table. Thank you, and thank you so much to the library for making the space available. This will be broadcast on your local cable public access station. It should be ready tomorrow, I believe, but don't hold me to it. Invite your friends to watch. Thank you. Go home safe.